welcome to Malice's Spa. I see that you're booked in for the medium session. Is that correct? Okay. You didn't select any treatments in particular, so what I like to do in those circumstances is put together my own special little mixture. How does that sound? Good. So, relax. I don't need to take any information from you. I know all there is to know. All you need to do is be still and be silent. Now, I'm going to use a selection of tools to just try to work out what relaxes you best. Sometimes certain sounds work for people. Sometimes visuals. Sometimes it's things that remind you of a memory. To me, this item makes me think of a cat's purr. I did used to bring cats into my sessions, but I found that my particular cat, Midnight, didn't like people so much, and you would have thought that by the time they left I'd use this on them, but it's just his clothes. Also, some people are allergic, so I've got to think about that too. This next item isn't actually an item I've ever used before because it was more of an accident. They say that breaking a mirror brings you 7 years bad luck, but I've always had bad luck, so sometimes I like to just break mirrors for the fun of it. I thought I might as well get some use out of it. So instead of sweeping it away, thought we'd see what this does for you. This one was a vintage one from the 1950s, I believe. to read you a story. It's not anything too scary, don't worry. It's just Little Red Riding Hood. I'm sure you've heard it before. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived on the edge of the woods. The thing she liked best in all the world was a red cloak with a hood that her granny had given to her. In fact, she liked it so much that she wore it nearly all of the time. Because of this, everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother sighed as she read a letter. "It's from Granny," she said, "and she's not feeling very well, but I just haven't time to go see her today." "I could go," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Well," replied her mother, "I suppose you are quite a big girl now. I'll put a basket of nice things for Granny and you can take it to her. But you must promise me not to wander off the path and not to talk to anyone on the way." "Of course not," said Little Red Riding Hood. So, Little Red Riding Hood set off for her granny's cottage on the other side of the woods. Her mother waved to her until she was out of sight among the trees. It was a lovely day. The birds sang and little woodland animals peeped out to see Little Red Riding Hood go by. Soon she saw some lovely flowers growing beneath the trees. "These would make a wonderful present for Granny," she said to herself as she stopped to pick some. She forgot that her mother had told her not to wander off the path at all. Just as Little Red Riding Hood had finished picking a big bunch of flowers, a wolf stepped out from behind a nearby tree. "Good afternoon, my dear," he said. "What a charming bunch of flowers." "I'm sorry," said Little Red Riding Hood firmly, "but I'm not allowed to talk to strangers. I'm on my way to see my granny and I mustn't be late." And she walked quickly on down the path. The wolf watched her go, with a smile on his long grey face. "Perhaps we shall meet again," he called. Then he ran off through the trees, following a secret shortcut that only wolves knew. Half an hour later, Little Red Riding Hood arrived at her granny's cottage. "That's strange," she thought. "Granny's left her door open." Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the open door and walked in. It was quite dark inside the cottage, and Little Red Riding Hood wondered whether Granny was asleep, so she tiptoed quietly over to the bed. Granny was wide awake and sitting up, but she really didn't look very well at all. She was wearing a nightcap that didn't quite seem big enough. "Why, Granny," whispered Little Red Riding Hood, "what big ears you have." "The better to hear you with, my dear," said Granny. In a strange voice, Little Red Riding Hood looked a little closer. "Why, Granny," she cried in surprise, "what big eyes you have." "The better to see you with, my dear," said Granny, pulling the covers up a little higher. But Little Red Riding Hood had seen something very odd indeed. "Why, Granny," she gasped, "what big teeth you have." "The better to eat you with," shouted the wolf, leaping out of the bed and throwing off Granny's nightcap. Little Red Riding Hood screamed at the top of her voice and ran towards the door. A woodman who was working nearby heard the scream. Luckily, a woodman who was working nearby heard the scream and hurried in with his axe. The wolf was so frightened that he ran off into the trees. "We won't be seeing him around here for a long while," said the woodman. "Where's Granny?" cried Little Red Riding Hood. Just then there came a strange thumping sound from the cupboard. The woodman opened the door, and out fell Granny. "There's nothing like a good fright to cure a cold," she said cheerfully. "Now sit down, both of you, and I'll put the kettle on." Now that's a very nice version of that story, but when I was growing up, the woodman chopped the wolf up into lots of little pieces to make sure that he couldn't hurt anyone ever again. How are you feeling? Do you think my treatments worked? Good. Come back again if you ever want more. But for now,